This is Maryland's wake-up call. Sean and Frank on Talk Radio 680 WCBM and WCBM.com.
Hour number 3 of Sean and Frank, Maryland's wake-up call. Talk Radio 680 WCBM. Coming up in this hour, we'll talk to a congressman who's introduced a bill to prevent the bailout of insurance companies under the Unaffordable Care Act. Pelosi Galore's job jinx. The Benghazi bungle. Red bill boycotts the wearing of the green. And we'll take a look at Maryland's politicians and the empirical medical evidence they seem to be ignoring as they try to legalize marijuana. And Christine O'Donnell joins us at the back half of the hour to talk about being targeted by the IRS, and that investigation has begun to heat up as well. All right, and we got a birthday wish here.
Well, yeah, special young man, my youngest son, Joe. He's 14 today. He's turning into quite a young guy.
Joe Jr.
Yeah, Joe, yeah. Happy birthday, Joe. Joe loves coming down here. He fell in love with the characters around this place. He just loves it. So happy birthday to you,
Happy birthday, Joe, and get Dad out there and help you practice your driving. Joining us now on our Newsmaker hotline is Congressman Tim Griffin. He is a Republican from Arkansas. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We found this out from I guess once you pass the bill, you got to find out what's in it, right? And several of the provisions in the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, provide for a bailout of the insurance companies. And you've introduced a bill to help prevent that from happening. So tell us more about your bill.
Sure. Well, here's the deal. It's called a risk corridor, and these have been used in other instances where they function properly. And, I've been asked, and others like Senator Rubio, I'm sure, has been asked, what's the difference between risk corridors in other contexts, such as in the Medicare Part D context, and in this context. And here's the deal. Risk corridors basically they look at the insurance company's performance in the market, in that exchange or whatever, and when they have losses or make a little money, they determine how much they either get out of the risk corridor or pay into the risk corridor. So basically, insurance company not doing as well, they'll get topped up. And they'll get a little money out of the risk corridor. The ones that are doing well, they'll pay in a little bit. And what it does is it sort of equalizes the risk within that little market for the insurance companies, and that keeps them from pursuing only the healthy patients because they know they're all going to make money, and it's all going to be pretty much an equal outcome for the different companies. But here's the deal. That is not intended to be a provision for a bailout. It's intended to work with a functioning, healthy market, just making sure the different companies are at about the same level. So why do we think this is potentially a bailout? Well, here's what happened. So the president has made a number of unilateral changes, and every time he makes those changes, I think he's doing it for political reasons, but every time he makes those changes, the insurance companies say, wait a minute, we set all of our rules and premiums based on the law, and now you're changing it, and it's making things worse. The market's already bad for us because people aren't signing up as you thought they were, Mr. President. Well, so HHS, Department of Health and Human Services, they put out a press release in November, and they basically, I'm going to put it in my words, they basically say, look, don't worry, insurance companies, we're going to take care of you through the risk corridors if something goes wrong. The actual language is something to the effect of, we are writing the rules on the risk corridors, and we're going to see if we can't write them so that it provides you protection in this, because you're losing money, or if you lose money. So,
well, Congressman, let me stop you there for just a second, because is this Section 1342? Is this the risk corridor provision? So let me ask you this. The insurance companies knew, or the reason why they signed on to this thing and, were waving the flags, yes, go Obamacare, is they thought they were going to make a lot of money on this thing.
Right.
So then...
risk.
Exactly. But are they having it both ways here, knowing, A, we're going to make a lot of money on this, but just in case...
Don't give us any risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course they are.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a too big to fail deal. But the key point here is, if the president, here's what the president ought to say if he were adhering to the law precisely as it's written. Here's what he would say. He would say, insurance companies, I know there's the potential for you to lose a lot of money and go bankrupt, or if the market fails, because the people aren't signing up right. And I know that the risk corridor is there just to smooth out the bumps. It's not there to bail you out. So, therefore, insurance companies, I've got to tell you, there's nothing in the law that authorizes me to bail you out if you go under. But that's not what he said. He has sent the signal through his administration that wink, wink, nod, nod, don't worry, if something goes really wrong, we're going to use this risk corridor provision to take care of you guys, even though that he's not authorized to do that.
We're talking with Congressman Tim Griffin, Republican of Arkansas, who has introduced a bill to stop this potential bailout in the Affordable Care Act.
Congressman, this is Frank Luber. There's a lot of speculation that, basically the whole premise behind Obamacare and the Obama administration is to eventually get rid of the health insurance industry. Throw them under the bus, more or less. So why in the world would there be any attempts to try to bail them out right now when that might be the ultimate goal, and that is to get rid of them?
Well, he's got to have at least as this in the intermediate term, he's got to have these insurance companies. They're the partners in this whole deal, and I think that some people have said, well, if you take away the risk corridors, you're going to move us to a single payer. I think it's just the opposite. I think what the insurance companies will do, they won't go under and move us to a single payer. I think if you took away the risk corridor, I think the insurance companies would say, we're not going to participate in this particular exchange. And here's the thing. If the president wanted to address bailout, the potential of a catastrophic industry failure where you would need, quote, a bailout, if he wanted to address that, separate from the risk corridor, which just sort of balances within the market, he ought to come to Congress. The problem is one of trust here. You see it on the immigration issue. You see it on this issue. And you see it in so many other issues where the Congress, and I think many around America, don't trust the president to follow the law as written.
Well, that's an excellent point, Congressman. So why are the Republican leaders even contemplating writing any kind of legislation right now if you don't trust the president and perhaps even the Democratic leadership? Why is Paul Ryan and Chuck Schumer knocking heads over this thing at all?
Let me say this. First of all, I believe we need immigration reform as a general matter. I think our system is all messed up. I also think we ought to enforce the law that is written. I think we need to, a less bureaucratic way to deal with the process. But I totally agree with the idea of, okay, so you're going to give the president more laws, more rules to follow on immigration when he's basically ignored the ones he's got. I mean, I think we've got to step back here. This is not about what we're for and what we're against. This is about whether we can count on our partners on the other side of the aisle to behave in good faith, particularly the executive branch, to enforce the law as written. I mean, look, this is a president who has unilaterally, I don't want to give him credit here, but he's unilaterally done more to repeal Obamacare than anybody. Unilaterally. He just wakes up one day, finds a part that's not politically palatable, and changes the law, right? He changed the work requirement for welfare. He basically said, I'm not going to enforce the law on immigration. I'm going to take the concept of prosecutorial discretion to such a high level that basically I'm just going to decide whether to enforce any law at all. And so, I mean, that's the backdrop against which we have to function.
Congressman, let me ask you this. What in the world is going on within the ranks of your party? I mean, some are saying that you're on a suicide mission by even talking about immigration reform right now when the number one concern in this country is Obamacare. The Republicans have, in effect, been given an issue on a silver platter. It's there for them to take, and yet it appears they're jumping overboard.
Well, let me say a couple things on that. There are certainly people who would like to pursue that right now. I think after talking to the rank and file and some others in leadership, I just don't see that happening.
You mean they're going to get off the immigration reform wagon right now and concentrate on Obamacare?
In terms of talking, but there's not the support there's not the trust.
So it's all talk.
Well, they may not want it to be talk. They may want to turn some of this talk into action. But look, read Bill Kristol's editorial on this. Read the National Review's editorial on this. These are conservative publications who, as a general matter, they want to see real reform of the way our bureaucracy works, et cetera, on immigration. But they both said, wait a minute, guys. He's not following the laws he's got.
That's not a sudden revelation either. We're talking with Congressman Tim Griffin. All right, so is your bill going to get a good hearing in the House? We would expect it should pass the House. And what are the prospects of the other piece of legislation in the Senate?
I think that I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. There's still a lot of educating to do, educating fellow members and just sort of explaining precisely why a risk corridor in the current context is different than the ones that have functioned properly in other contexts. And so I would say that we've got a little work to do to keep getting co-sponsors and all. So we will see. I think we have obviously a much better shot of putting it on the floor in the House and getting it through than the Senate, because Harry Reid, he's got a track record of this.
Yes, he does.
He wakes up from a nap occasionally, looks around, goes, no need to vote.
All right, well, Congressman Tim Griffin, Republican of Arkansas, thanks for the introduction of this bill to protect the American consumers and the American
people. Can I mention one more thing?
Absolutely, sir.
So back in December, the president, he said, I welcome ideas on health care. If you've got ideas on health care, short of repealing Obamacare, which he's not going to do, let me know if you have ideas. So I wrote a letter to him with about 33 other House members laying out some big ideas, expanding health savings accounts, competition across state lines, et cetera. Sent that letter, said, hey, we'd love to talk. It's been 50-something days now, and no word from the White House. So State of the Union comes along. He basically says the same thing. Hey, if you got ideas, hey, I want to hear about them. So we reminded him that we sent the letter. Nothing. So I told my staff we're going to send a press release every single day until he either responds or I leave office, counting the number of days since he offered to talk.
That's a great idea, and if hopefully get the media to cover it, because it won't be all that effective unless they do. So
we're working on it.
Thank you, Congressman. We appreciate your time here this morning.
Thank y'all.
Congressman Tim Griffin, Republican from the great state of Arkansas.